welcome back to this stream, writing a programming language in Rust, where I'm developing a kind of, I suppose, a domain-specific language for shell scripting in the same uh, kind of space as the likes of Bash and regular POSIX compliance shells, but with an emphasis on making the, I suppose, syntax and things like that. I suppose a bit more regular or C-like, just so it's hopefully more familiar to people coming from those kind of languages. And so a lot of this has been fleshed out this year, which I'm pretty happy about. A lot of the fundamentals have been done. I've been adding a few nice features that are specific to the language itself. And so this will probably be my last stream of this year. I'll be taking a bit of a break over the next few weeks. And so, yeah, so basically where I am at the moment is I decided to take a little bit of time from say rewriting. So what I had been doing was rewriting a few demo scripts that were written in shell script and Bash, and rewriting them in this new language. I took a bit of a break last week from that to set up the actual Lexer slash scanner for the language, because I had been using the default out of the box one provided by LALRPOP, and I decided, just because there were a few features that I wanted to add, such as even just say being able to more clearly define where errors were being produced, things like that, adding line numbers to errors, some of those things that weren't provided out of the box by the LALRPOP parser or by the LALRPOP Lexer were just things I wanted to add. I got through a fair portion last week in the stream, and was able to cover a lot of the basics of the language or of the Lexer. I did get caught out for a while on the fact that when I had set up this project, I had set it up to read a full source file, and whatever way I was reading it in, I actually removed all the new line characters from it, which didn't really make any difference for day-to-day parsing. But there were a couple of places now that I'm looking at the Lexer itself where that was, highlighting some fundamental issues that I'd overlooked, such as commenting out individual lines. I thought it was actually happening due to the me messing up the regex for the parsing rules, but it was actually the fact that I was ignoring those new line characters, or that those were being dropped. So that was a big portion of last week's stream, I think, even just debugging that. And so where I am now is basically, looking to hopefully complete this this Lexer and put it in place so that it replaces the default one, and will more or less be forgetting about it from that point on. It's a piece that, in general, doesn't have too much of an impact. I think once the basics are done, it really just kind of converts the source file into a more comprehensible, kind of gives a nice abstraction for working with the parser. So hopefully I'll get that done today. That's the intention anyway, and that'll be the language in relatively good shape for the new year, and to again start looking at new features and different things that can be done with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. I will need to do a little bit of a recap, actually, of just where I am at the moment. So it looks like there is so there are some comments here already, and I think I fixed it so that if I put ABC here at the end, I'll get an unsupported error on well, it looks like a character, or apologies, on position 25. So that's something that I'd like to look at today, is making the locations be based on line numbers rather than character positions. But I suppose that's something that I can hold off for a little bit longer. Let's see, something, yeah, that I think I wanted to handle as well was, yes, get set up with support for actual identifiers. So I'm able to match match an identifier in the scanner, I believe, but I have to now be able to convey that information to the parser that, you know, what I'm looking at a particular point is an identifier. So let's see. So the rule here is we start off confirming that it's not the end of the file first. Then if it's any number of, say, obvious tokens, then we just try and, you know, we just consume that from the stream and return the token. Otherwise, we get into somewhat more sophisticated parsing. So we say, you know, oh, it might be an identifier, or so if we match a group of characters, then if we know that it matches null, then we can return null. Otherwise, if it's an actual identifier, we'll try, or if it doesn't match any of the default keywords, then we say, okay, it's an identifier. And that's where we're at, I suppose, is trying to convey to the parser, or at the parser layer, try and extract this information and use it to continue the processing. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just confirm that the token that I'm getting here is an identifier with that item. So that is coming back with a new line character, it looks like. Oh, that might have been something I overlooked last time, or that was something that presented itself at the end of the stream maybe last time. Because do I have caps lock enabled today? Oh no, wrong string. So now that I've reintroduced handling of new lines, that seems to have caused some kind of raised to the surface some issues with the existing code I have for skipping white space and comments. So what I'll do is, oh, and that's right. So this was actually working, if I recall correctly, and this was working if there was just an identifier. But if there was, yeah, and so that all works okay. Even though the identifier syntax isn't correct at the moment, I'll have to fix that. But if there are comments at the moment, they don't get skipped correctly, and that, I believe, is where I was debugging things at the moment. So if I put that there, maybe. So it's actually getting a token error. So when there are comments in the source file, it's getting into some kind of a loop that it can't escape from, and so that's what I need to look into debugging. So where are we now? So it's coming back here, and let me see, this is the only, oh yeah, so there are two places where this is getting output. So I'll adjust this put that in there to distinguish those two. Yeah, and so the second piece that I'm coming across here is that that once it gets to this point, it's outputting the new line character because it's not getting removed for some reason in skip white space and comments. And actually, I think I might know the reason for that. Yeah, so it's because in here, I'm checking if the next character is a new line, but I'm not. For some reason, my connection speed has gone way down. This has been happening a bit in the last few weeks. But what it's doing at the moment is it's checking what the next character is, and if it's a new line, then it's breaking, but it's not actually consuming that character. So although I would have said that if it is a new line character, even if we don't consume it here and we break out of this loop, we'll go down here and it should be an ASCII whitespace character, at which point we consume it. Unless it's breaking out of both loops, but I don't think that's the case. I suppose a quick test of this is to go to the Rust playground and just confirm the behavior of the new line character with is ASCII whitespace. So let's try this. Yeah, so that's true. So I think it would be a relatively straightforward fix to do that. Although it still isn't. What I was going to say anyway is that that should be a straightforward fix. It seems that it isn't anyway. But even if it was, that would be kind of an area where even if it was working, it wouldn't be what I'd expect. So I'd still want to take a further look and see why this is happening the way that it's happening. So yeah, so I would like to do some debugging on this. I wonder what's the best way of me outputting the kind of say ordinal for that character. Let's see, Rust character to int. So it was as, oh no, 2-digit. Or as U32. Yeah, so just because, dealing with white space here, it's probably easier to debug if I output the so this isn't responding. Yeah, I think I'm going to and we're back, I think. Apologies for that. Just some router issues, I think. So yeah, I want to take a look at what's happening in this loop that's causing it to I suppose even to just figure out what's being parsed at this point, because here what I would like, and if I put identifiers at either side of these, I just want all of this to get skipped really. And there probably doesn't need to be any great complexity about, capturing the comments at this point in time. Eventually, when I take a look at things like automatically formatting source code, I will probably want to keep information about comments distinct from whitespace. But for the moment, I can kind of treat the two interchangeably. So with that said, let's take a look here. I'm just trying to think what's my best way of outputting this kind of debug information without kind of cluttering things too much. So maybe I suppose just start pretty simply, print C as U32, and follow it by a space maybe. And I'll have to actually give a format string. So where do we get to? We get to the point where we parse ABC, I believe. And it's not parsing 59, so I'm guessing 59 in this case is actually the semicolon. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, so that's decimal 59. So yeah, maybe I'll put something down here to say, done. So that's interesting. First of all, so we've parsed, well, maybe it's not so interesting. So first of all, we skip the white space, and that leads us up to the character A. And then we parse the identifier ABC. Then we come around to skip white space and comments again after identifier has been parsed. At which point we have a semicolon, and it looks like it's skipping the semicolon. So is that being treated as ASCII whitespace? So maybe that's something to check here. I'd be very surprised if it was, but no harm in double checking. Whoops. So this realistically, yeah, should be false. So in this case, what exactly is the path through here? So I'll put in some debugging here to say that it went into this zone and came out of this zone, or came out of this zone. And let's see, just again another character to acknowledge where we're going through this function. Again, just using characters here, like I'd usually just use numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on to delineate code paths. But since I'm using those to debug the actual characters being output, this probably makes a little bit more sense anyway. But so we get to the semicolon. Oops. We get to the semicolon, and then we, it's not equal to this, so we skip that part and then immediately return. Okay, yeah, sorry. So that's my mistake. I should have put that here as well, so I can actually remove that. So we get to a semicolon. It's not white space. So in fact, I'll just to distinguish the well, I suppose this will actually excuse me, this will actually never get output, so I'll replace that. So yeah, so semicolon gets skipped. In the case of new lines, then what's happening here? So we encounter the first new line, and that gets skipped. So we go on to the, it is ASCII white space, so it gets skipped, and we go on to the next character. The next character in that case will be this, and again, yeah, maybe just to highlight this, I will actually put this back in to say that we enter the loop there and exit the loop here. So we have what? We have a new line here after the semicolon that we skip. Then we have another new line here after the semicolon that we skip, and then we have the actual pound symbol, which is, again, I'm guessing character 35. So let's double check that. Yeah, 35 is pound, and so at that point we do go into the loop, and we eventually skip all of those. So maybe I'll just keep track of exactly what's getting skipped. I'll put that in here, and I'll put a double bang at the point where it exits that loop. Okay, so we go into the loop, is it? No, we go into the loop here, and it looks like it's not changing the character. So it's doing a peak character, but it's still actually exiting the loop at some point, but that's probably exiting the loop when we reach the end of file rather than when we actually reach the new line. And so it looks like, oh, that's because I'm rendering the wrong character. So that's me getting caught out by my bad naming, as has been often happening on this stream. So we're going through all of these, and none. So I'll just in brackets after the character, I'll put, after the character code, I'll put the character itself. So we have here are some comments, and so we reach the end of we reach the new line, and that's all good. So we output the double bang. We haven't consumed the new line yet. We come out of this point, but then it's saying that C, okay, the C character is ASCII whitespace, and that's happening because I made the mistake that the character in this loop is also the character that's being referred to out here as well, but this is actually a separate character. So what I would probably want to do in this case is, once I get outside this loop, maybe to do a continue, something like that. Yeah, and so that seems to have actually resolved it. So how did that kind of fix things? Basically kind of almost like reset the character that we're currently referencing, so that once we, this is just going to skip an entire comment, and once we get to the end of it, we we want to kind of start the kind of eating process again almost. And maybe it would actually be clearer to just put an else statement here. Again, this is one of these things where, you know, it's technically somewhat redundant, because, you know, we could have this kind of, we could remove this indentation by having continue here. I personally feel like this would be I suppose this is just kind of clear to me. I think in general I have come around to the way of thinking of having guard clauses, but you know it's not a hard and fast rule. I do think there are scenarios where having, you know, the if and the else clearly defined makes more sense. So let me just double check if there's any obvious refactorings here, because with the breaks and the returns, it does look like there could be some optimization to be done here, but maybe it's worth it to actually just leave it alone and just continue with the rest of the code rather than trying to refactor this too much, since it's a relatively short function anyway. Let's see. The only other thing I wonder is whether to actually add some to put the comment parsing logic in here as well. But I think it makes sense to keep it where it is for now. So that is at least working again. Now the only issue here is if I go back into my LALRPOP file, I'm not actually using the proper definition of identifiers as it exists in the language at the moment, because identifiers should start with a dollar symbol, and I'm not doing that currently, so I will want to so I will want to sorry, just someone working outside. So so let's see. Yeah, whether to handle that right now. I suppose the main thing that it'll change is it'll be no longer this rule if there isn't a match. This will actually generate an unquoted string literal instead. So I'll put the instead there'll be a section down here, and it'll be else if C is equal to a dollar symbol, and then I'll start the whatchamacallit the string parsing process. So I'll put down here. So at this point, it's going to peek at the next character. So I haven't actually processed the existing character yet. So because I want to skip this dollar symbol, I will actually go next character here, and we use the same logic from here. Start will actually start after this character, because start is going to be used to parse the parse that range, or to capture that range of the source stream. And so let's see, this will be let id is equal to that, or maybe id name, and then the id itself. Or maybe the ID will be that, the token will be that, and finally I will return start -1 to include the or maybe maybe I'll actually do it like this and do start +1. Maybe a bit cleaner. I can remove that for the moment. And so now we have ABC isn't defined. So that is now being caused by what, I wonder? So that's somewhat of a surprising message to me. Oh, that's because I still have IDs being supported, or these being parsed as IDs. I need to exhaustively match. So in this case, yeah, I suppose I'll just put the proper behavior in here in this case. So it'll be unquoted string literal. And I don't think, so that won't be handled in let's see, that won't be handled in the parser just yet. Will I get a complaint about that? So yeah, so I got a complaint because it's not an expected token in that context, I believe. Whereas if I put some dollar symbols there, then I'd get back to my original ABC isn't defined, which is what I'd expect. Cool. So those bits are now, probably not as clean as I'd like, but the things that are there are more or less in the right place so far. So I suppose I'll continue on with adding the rest of these in their proper place. So first, let's see. Once I get a couple more of these, then I think I'll be in a good position to start re-enabling most of the parsing here. So where to start? So I have unquoted string literal more or less done. I have identifier more or less done. And so this is now handled by default. So this is handling of comments and skipping of white space. So then the next, hopefully, relatively straightforward piece to do is to handle integer parsing. So let's see, Rust character is ASCII digit, so from the range 0 to 9, which is what we want. And so in this case, we'll copy some of the logic from up here. Again, once I have kind of abstracted this more, or once I have more examples of this, then I can take a look at abstracting them once I have kind of a high-level view of what are the different variations of this idea of start at this position and parse a number of characters. So in this case, the thing I want to do in here is parsing ASCII digits. I won't have support for underscores in digits at the moment. They'll just be regular decimal or regular base 10 digits at the moment. And so that should match a number, which will be here. we can parse that. Let's see, how do I parse it over here actually? I do I64 again. This is probably not great because it'll panic on a failure, but we'll do raw int parse unwrap, and then we'll be able to turn that into an int literal. Which will be our t. And so that needs to get added up here. Cool. So maybe I'll just add some code to demonstrate this, though this won't be handled in the parser, so I'll need to add that next. Oops. I think I'm using this right. And at that point, we can put that in there maybe. So int literal doesn't exist, so I'll have to replace that with wonder if there's an easy way of keeping these literal productions the way they were. I'll have to look into that in a bit. So ABC isn't defined, so let's start looking at yeah, so I'll leave, so the two pieces to still be handled are, well actually it's mainly just quoted string literal, which is kind of one of the big reasons why I think I started looking into this lexing in the first place, or this manual lexing. But let me think. Yeah, so I might start looking at some of the extra keywords in the language, such as let, for example. So there's let and const. There surely has to be a lighter weight way of handling the likes of these keywords. And I also need to handle equals. So if I have let ABC is equal to 1, 2, 3, hopefully that'll that'll remove the error. Yeah, nice one. So finally back to a point where I can actually start parsing things again, and comments are finally working properly somewhat, or at least in theory there. So what I might do is add support for functions again, so that I can actually, or in fact, I have support for parameters here. So maybe I have support for printing. Okay, yeah, I do. So brilliant. So I'm finally at the point again where I can actually start debugging this scanner as I go along. So I'm actually going to take a quick break. So I think there's a fairly good position to be in, at least. It'll be a little manual for the next while, but at least I can start adding in kind of all the different bits that were taken, or that were being handled automatically. So let me think, is this, just thinking, is there any easy way of for example, handling the likes of these tokens more easily? I'm not sure. And the way I'm handling these two. So this is kind of identifying the fact that it is a token. Yeah, there's probably not much that can be done about that. I suppose actually what I can do instead, just to retain the way things were, is to reinstate these, but replace the actual token parsing with the new rules that I've created. Might be a little redundant, but let's see. S in this case. I can always remove them again later if I want, but this at least makes it look a lot, I suppose, is more similar to what was there before I started the work on the Lexer. So let's see. In this case, I would have int literal. I can replace that with n. Yeah, and I think I'm understanding a bit better the kind of way that that's an unusual sort order. I think I'm understanding a little bit better the way that this token enumeration is functioning. I wouldn't say that's still quite intuitive, but I at least understand it a bit better, I would say. Oh, is this sorting on the first kind of actual alphabetical character in the column rather than the first symbol? Oh, hey, unavailable user 5. I'm doing well. How are you? Oh, and yeah, you're doing fine. Good to hear. Um, I think that's just an Irish thing to say as well. Is how are you? So that's the reason why it was somewhat automatic there. So yeah, we put in into literal here. So what's going wrong here? Cannot find type str in this scope. In which scope exactly is that now? Did I do that with one of these? Oh, that should be string. Let's try that. Yeah, that all seems to be good. Let's try string literal. For the moment, string literal will just be the unquoted string literal. And I suppose I'll just go through things one at a time. So I can remove this that stuff because it was mostly debugging stuff. Let's see, next we'll do import uses a quoted string literal, so I'll leave that for the moment too. Maybe I'll enable these kind of expressions. Is there a simple way of handling all of those in one go, I wonder? There probably is. What are the pros and cons of that though? Possibly makes it less explicit, but then this is probably something that could have been abstracted before as well, or could be abstracted afterwards by mapping this to a binary operation. So what I'll do for the moment is just leave it the way it is, I think. Or will I? I'm definitely not a fan of refactoring, of performing additional refactorings in the middle of a refactoring. At the same time, though, yeah, what I'll probably do is do the more verbose version first and then try and refactor that shortly afterwards. So I'll have equals, plus equals, minus equals, times equals, and plus minus. Or, so we'll do like that. Actually, those might be a little more complicated, so I'll leave them out for the time being and just leave equals the way it is for the moment anyway. Let's see, if, while, and for, function and return should all be hopefully relatively straightforward. So they're ones where they mapped keywords, so they're relatively straightforward. Oh, fn has an overlap with Rust. else as well. So down here we'll have all of those too. It would probably be nice to have a hash map mapping to each of these, but I'll just do it like this for the moment. And these can actually be copied over here more or less as is. That's kind of handy. Oh, I need in as well. Braces. And maybe I'll do brace close and brace open rather, excuse me, rather than having the close and open at the start, just so that when they're ordered by when they're ordered alphabetically, they'll be in the correct place. So let's try that. That also has the benefit that now that these are being sorted as well by character, it means that they are put in the correct groupings as well. So let's see. And sort all of those. Cool, and we're back to where we were again. So the next chunk we'll do is the Boolean operators. So I'll remove those for the moment. And I'll go and or. It's tricky. Yeah, I suppose I'll just call this dot dot. So at the moment I'm somewhat, for the names I'm using the characters themselves rather than their kind of semantic meaning. So, instead of saying, try or catch for this, it'll be, question mark. Um, How best to handle these double characters, like the same issue that I was handling above. Maybe I'll leave them out for the moment, actually. So I'll stick to single characters for the time being. Oops, not sure what happened there. We have mul and we have div. Oops. Maybe I'll squeeze the page a little to the right. So yeah, again, this is kind of one of the reasons why I would say scanners aren't necessarily the most exciting part, because I suppose a lot of it really is just handling the basics. Now, I think this is probably, a little more probably verbose than it necessarily needs to be. I think a lot of this could be automated, and it usually is by the LALRPOP default Lexer. But at the same time, so most of those will probably work as is. I just need to put in handling for square braces or square brackets as well. Oh, and I have a need for colons. that just yet. Oops. And so let's see, there is, yeah, support for brackets. That's the only thing about all of this as well, is the amount of duplication to really lends itself to error as well. You know, if I say for even any of these opening brackets, I'm repeating that bracket, what's it, 3 times. So I have it in the scanner definition for what characters it's looking for. I have it in the parser definition for what character it's looking for. It's kind of all right in the parser though, even though it's used in 2 places. The second place is really referring to this, so that's not too bad. There is a bit of duplication between these two. I suppose it keeps them decoupled is the nice thing. But then what is the value of that decoupling in this scenario realistically? Just taking a look at some information from LALRPOP now that I've I suppose gotten into the swing of it somewhat and done a bit more. I wonder, is there anything else that I was overlooking once I was kind of just trying to figure this stuff out and get it working? So this is the AST definition, and then here we have the token definitions. Those aren't referencing the tokens directly, but they're kind of copying the information somewhat. Yeah, I think that's just an optimization that can be done, and maybe I'll do that after this initial kind of implementation. There are a few bits at this point now, so maybe I'll actually add them to the to-do. So there is use tokens with references. Use or have location capture line number. Was there more? Was there something I wanted to simplify in theory? I remove that print line at this point actually, since it's was just for debugging. Could have sworn there was something else that I wanted to refactor. Well, there was those. Oh yeah, so there was actually the nesting or names of operator bindings. And there was also the kind of operation um, operation binding operators are not, so those wouldn't be binary, they'd be arithmetic. And those were it for now, I think. So with that, I think that's actually more or less all the basic matches. Oh, let me see here actually. There's some more in this area. So can I just enable that one, I wonder? And that's more or less it for the single character ones anyway. So I need to add in support for, oh, there's another one there. And so I need to add in support for multi-character kind of simple simple tokens. Let me take a look. And the other thing that I need to look at as well is quoted string literals. I'll probably just use a simple implementation of the quoted string literals, basically the same as what's here in terms of regex, but once once I have support for that, I will probably want to make it a little bit more sophisticated with support for interpolation. Having said that, I wonder, will I need to, or can I actually? It's something that I was thinking in between streams again, that I could potentially just parse the quoted string literal more or less as is, and then handle the interpolation in the evaluation step, which would, I suppose, there's for and against, um, but I think both approaches are valid. So for the moment, anyway, I'm just going to add a simple implement, or I suppose the more straightforward implementation of quoted string literal. And so if we find this, then I'll do similar to what I did with variables. So keep matching until so at the moment I'm not handling escaping. So I'll keep matching until basically I just get the closing delimiter. And I will also consume the ending delimiter in this case. So that's something that's different from some of these. Get with some of the other ones, or some of the other matching patterns, they get up to a point where the sequence is discontinued. So, I'm matching characters and I get to a point where there are no more characters. So I stop there and I don't consume the next character. In this case, the next character is basically is specifying the end of the string. So I will consume that as well. But I also need to make sure that I remove it from my kind of character range that I'm producing. So let's try that. And I think I've a guest who's wanting to come in, so I will just tend to that. Yeah, come on. It's nicer and warmer in here, isn't it? Whoops. So next we have quoted string literal there, and quoted string literal there. So yeah, it's getting more to the point where I'd seen before, where where LALRPOP was taking kind of longer and longer to compile the parser, just because of how big it was getting. All right, and that's almost it. I think the last thing then is just handling for the double character. Oh, I need to add support for import. But with that done, the next bit is to handle some of these. I suppose there's a kind of generic way I can handle these, or there's a I suppose less generic way I can handle it, and by kind of somewhat hard coding each sequence. I'll probably do it the hard coded or the generic way, just for simplicity. And I'll add it as an else down here. So this will be kind of the last thing to check, because maybe actually, yeah. So just because I know that that these operators are all going to be 2 characters in length, I can add in some somewhat hacky code to handle that. Again, this is probably something that I would want to refactor, because it'd be very easy to forget about it and think that I can just add any symbols down here. So here's what I'm thinking. So if so I have C at this point, and I can do, well, this is a tricky one as well, actually, because I'll have to do potentially do kind of a look ahead. actually, the generic approach that I was thinking might not be so feasible. So first, what I'd have to do is check all of the symbols that I support for look-aheads and check the first symbol of those and see do any of those match the first character that I have. Um, and maybe I rename that from unsupported to unexpected character. And I'll put C in there. Oops. Does that compile? Yeah, that seems all right. And just to see that in action, actually, if I were to put in, I don't know, dollar symbol there, for example. So that's actually unrecognized token. And maybe a character that I don't use at all, something like that. Yeah, unexpected character, ampersand. That's kind of cool. So let's see, what's my best way of handling these double characters. So if I have, for example, that would map to token and I'd have something matching or mapping to token or. Yeah, I suppose a simple approach for now. I mean, think. Yeah, very naive approach, not very efficient, but functional. And when you're talking about two characters, the efficiency is still going to be relatively good. Could be to go through, kind of have a vector of these, and what I could do is go through each of them and match the see if any of them match the first character. If any do, move on to the second character, and well, at that point, I could actually do a hash map lookup to see if any match. So maybe I'll do it that way. So so this is going to be more or less pseudocode for the time being. So what I'm going to do is for t in and maybe that'll be let's see, Rust hash map. So we have for all of those keys, if K0. If C is equal to K0, then yeah, I basically do a lookup. By moving on to the next character. So maybe I'll actually leave this as just unexpected, because it might not necessarily be an unexpected character, but it might just be an unexpected sequence. So I'll take that out for the time being. And I'll say that S is equal to yeah, this is going to be very hacky for the time being. But again, as long as it's functional, it can be cleaned up later. So first of all, what I want to do is move forward. So yeah, so it'll be next char. Next C will be self peak, and it'll be, it'll be an if let. At this point, actually, we could just break. Actually, I could just skip this checking of the tokens. We've basically exhausted all other options. So if so we know that the only tokens that are available, the only remaining tokens that are available, are those kind of double character tokens. So with that in mind, I can basically just do something like uh, moving on to the next character. And that will need to be consumed as well. At the moment, I think I don't have that returning a value. I can update it so that it does, but for the moment, I'll just say that the next character gets consumed as well. So what we're going to do is, do a match on, very inefficient way of doing it, but should be fine for the moment. And we'll put the likes of those in here. Cool. So just adding a comment that you know, there's a very fixed implementation at the moment. I suppose one thing to note as well is that the whole scanner in reality is somewhat, uh, you know, I'm sure there's some kind of abstraction that can be done to more neatly handle even the matching of single character tokens and multi-character tokens in a kind of a cleaner way. But yeah, again, that can be handled separately at the same time though. So oh, that was something else to add to the to-do list is I think LALRPOP has some level of support for what it calls generics. Um, so I I think from what I've seen, I think it has kind of limited application to what I'm doing here, but there might be an opportunity to reuse some code. At the very least, I think they actually provide an example uh, that you performs a very similar activity to what I'm doing here, but does it in a clean or handles it in a cleaner way. So I might even just kind of copy some of that code um, directly. So I'm getting close, I think. Yeah, and we're back to the familiar compile times, so it should be a little bit quicker since it doesn't have to generate the default Lexer, though that probably isn't saving too much time. And now shortly will be the moment of truth where I actually attempt to apply, oops, greater than is missing. Oh. So there's just greater than. And same for less than. So if nothing gets matched there, then we do our return statement. Otherwise, we'll return the token that we get back. Maybe actually a better, though I'm not sure how much better, probably is a certain amount better, but maybe to actually put these in characters. Makes it a little trickier to read, but hopefully simplifies things for the compiler. Okay, so that is compiling and running on the basic example. What I'll do is I will reinstate the ongoing script, and let's see if it runs on that. No, it doesn't. That would be too easy. So unquoted string literal ROC. And so that means that a quoted string literal isn't being handled correctly. So that start +1 for handling the raw characters might be causing a bit of issue, though it's only consuming the character after the start. So I feel like that should be all right. What I'll do is I'll comment that out for the moment. Using the newly working comment functionality. So 62, so maybe I'll actually, so because those token positions are kind of difficult to read, maybe I will actually add in support for locations, at least for the error lexing. So let's see. So this is if the end of file has been reached. So this is the end of file hasn't been reached. Therefore, we'll check if the current character is a new line character. It's a little hacky, but should be all right for the moment. maybe for the moment, actually, I won't add that as the location type for tokens. Instead, I would just return it as the error position in when unexpected tokens are encountered. Okay, so let's try that. 147. So, okay, so that's actually not going to cut it, it seems. So I will actually have to tag that location to all of those tokens for the moment. So let's try this. Is it not as simple as just replacing that type? So I need to implement to triplet. So and let me see. Oh, I forgot to modify that anyway. I wonder will that make a difference? Hopefully. So I have the location defined in where in parser as usize, maybe if I update it to that's taking a while. Okay, that's promising at least. Okay, so that hopefully is now working, and I can remove some variables as well. So start and end here no longer used. Though I don't really want to kick off new compile of the parser. So but anyway, so it looks like the unexpected token was line 4, column 1. And that isn't very helpful. So it's saying int literal 3. Maybe it would be a good idea to comment out the whole file and then enable it one piece at a time. So I'll uncomment this line. Unexpected EOF, that's all right, because it got an EOF in the middle of a function. And in fact, I will uncomment that bit, uncomment the first line here. Yeah, and so we get the issue. Oh, I'm not actually incrementing column numbers, so that could be one reason why it's saying line 4 column 1 is because I'm never actually incrementing column. So that would be an else case here. So we'll try that, and that is going to kick off another. Oh, that wasn't so long. I suppose it can compile the use incremental compilation, I guess, to compile the Lexer separately to the parser, which is very useful in this situation. So column 34. So that's actually not very helpful still. Well, sorry, so column 33, and this is one-based indexing. So it's saying int literal 3. So maybe it's not parsing the string correctly. So maybe it's just a quick test. First of all, I'll actually call the main function, and I'll do a print of 1, 2, 3, and then I'll do a print of ABC. Yeah, so we seem to have found an issue here. So unquoted string literal BC, but I'm getting an unrecognized token error. On line 4, column 15, so it's starting at B, ending at C. So that's similar to what I was seeing with process. It's a bit worrisome that that's happening. This is a bit of a happy solution because while it possibly would resolve the issue, I feel like it shouldn't. So am I creating quoted string literals anywhere else? I'm not. And I also need to check, why is it even saying unquoted string literal isn't or is an unrecognized token? Not quite sure why it's not modifying the start position in this case, like why it's not expanding to ABC, and at this point to include the quotation character. Okay, well that's very strange. So the piece that's being printed out here is different to what looks like is being carried by the token. So, what could be the reason for that? So if I remove that -1 again, I'll just get that single quote. And if I print T at this point, I have to admit that's very unusual to me. And if I inspect what the start and the end are, Well, first of all, oh, I was going to say, um, yeah, so I'm not doing a next car in any of these places. Um, I was thinking that this was breaking on the original single quote, but it doesn't seem to be. So it's 42 up to 44. I must be doing something um, very obvious, I feel. Oh my goodness, this, yeah, that is criminally silly. Um, okay, does that does that fix my issue now? Still don't understand why it was printing BC though when that's clearly not the token that was being captured there. I still find that very unusual. But that is at least working now, so let's try this again. So the issue there is line 6, 42, an underscore. Oh no, sorry. Yeah. Um, so unexpected at this point. So is that the arrow symbol isn't being matched? Whoops, I keep using that. So let's comment that out for the moment and just do 1, 2, 3, or string strip prefix empty string. And it's at 0.9. Maybe I don't have a match for ASCII characters. I do though. It's sure it would be going into is ASCII alphabetic. Is it the fact that like if I did something like that, it shouldn't parse, but it should be a valid token. Yeah, it can only call functions, and that's being parsed as a string. Whereas if I did something like that, for example, just to see if it causes a token error, yeah, it's being parsed as a token. Because these are taking precedence, it will never make it down to the double token bunch. That is a tricky one. Um, though not necessarily tricky, but just could require some extra handling. Unfortunately, there's not a fair bit of work left in that. That's pretty now. I'd hoped to get through all of that today, but again, and there's not much left in it really. As such, it's just more that the handling for these rules is just, you know, it could be done relatively straightforward by hand, and that's what I may have to do for the initial implementation. But I feel like there should be a nicer way of handling it that I'd like to attempt as well. So I'm actually, yeah, I probably won't push it too much further than that. Um, I think most of the rest of it will hopefully be um, uh, working all right. Let me just check some of these. So this line won't work because of the double character there. Although double characters will work if the first one of those characters isn't its own token. Um, that won't work. Yeah, most of this function won't work. Let's try some of these. Those won't work. So the equal symbols won't work because the first half is valid, or is a valid token. Yeah, I won't go through all those, but yeah, okay, isn't defined there. Yeah, I'll probably leave it there. Again, not something that's too tricky to resolve, I would say, but well, no, sorry, it's not complicated to resolve, I suppose, but it is a little tricky. So I'll just throw that on the to-do list um, under maybe next. And so resolve precedence issue in. Although what I could do even though it would be a little hacky and would introduce a fair bit of duplication. Yeah, I could probably duplicate that and say that So this is being performed anyway. And this case, so that's shadowing this T. I'll just call it initial T for the moment. Again, not a great name, but something to make sure that it doesn't get shadowed. So let's try that. So essentially what I'm doing here is saying, okay, if we do match a T, then attempt to, so we're skipping we're consuming the current character anyway, because this is a valid token on its own. But we're also going to peek at the next character too. Although we shouldn't consume it right off in that case. Oops. Instead, we should do that. And so we're basically saying, oh, and that seemed to resolve what looked like a bug over here. So we're saying at this point, we know we've matched a token, so we're going to skip it anyway. But while we're here, let's look ahead at the next token too, because it could be part of a double character token, shall we say. And then if we do match a double character token, we'll return it. Otherwise, we're going to return the, so if we match a double character token, then we kind of return from the match and we return this new token. Otherwise, we default to the token we already matched. Again, even the fact that there is so much duplication between these sections indicates that it should be abstracted. So that's something to add here. And okay, so maybe, so that seems to allow this this arrow operator to get matched properly. I'm just going to be very brazen and uncomment the whole file, just in case it now is deciding to work. Well, it goes as far as line 31 anyway, without issue at this point. Character 15. Whoops. So we're so unexpected. Let's see. Even though this won't be an unexpected character error in future, I am going to add the character in here for the moment, just for debugging purposes. In this case, actually, oh, yeah, I see what I've done. So in the case where we've actually, though that should be all right. That's just saying if we reach the end of the file, you know, it doesn't make too much sense anyway. But we'll return the token that we have so far. So that's that one. But the piece that we'd surely be more interested in is, let's see, I'll call this unexpected custom EOF. It doesn't make too much sense, but again, that's something I'll actually put a no commit on. Then for this regular unexpected, yeah, I'll put in the two characters. Okay, so what's happening here is I've got a match between that's an interesting one. So less than and greater than are both in the section of the double character, what are they called? Double character tokens, but they really shouldn't be. So I'll put them down where they belong. Oops. Keep making that typo. Oh. And then down here, these can be removed. That was tricky. Okay, so that seems to be the Lexer working as expected, but more so in theory. This is just because of the errors that I've seen so far with it. This is very likely to be something that I'm not going to commit right now. Well, I will commit what's been done so far, but very much as a kind of proof of concept and something to be worked on later, because yeah, it's very easy for me to have introduced bugs at this point, it looks like, because there is a lot of code here to handle the Lexing. So at least that's at least code is in a functional position now, and kind of ready to be improved on. But yeah, I suppose that's where I'll leave that today. Thanks very much for watching, to anyone who's watching at the moment, and for supporting the kind of stream throughout the year. And hope to see everyone next year. And hope you have enjoyed the rest of the year. So take care.